I call this special meeting of the Board of Education Policy Management Committee to order. It is December 19th. Our student member is running a little bit late. He's stuck in holiday traffic, but he will be joining us shortly. So I'll go around the table and introduce ourselves. I'm Pat O'Neill, Chair of the committee.
Rebecca Smondrowski, Board of Education.
Lori Christina Webb, Chief of Staff to the Board.
Robin Seabrook, Director of Governance, Policy, and Community Relations for the Board.
Victoria Van Dyke, Board Staff.
Maureen McNamara, Office of the General Counsel.
Stephanie Williams, Associate General Counsel.
Josh Sivan, General Counsel.
Araza Labad, Executive Director, Office of School Support and Improvement.
Tracy Foster, Executive Director, Office of the Chief Academic Officer.
Judy Dawka, Member of the Board, District 1.
So today we will review comments received on policy JEE. Early last week, I had met with staff, and at that point we had only received about 50 comments. And at that point I asked, maybe we should put it out again for public comment and remind folks. And lo and behold, that did the trick. We now have over 500 comments. I know that staff since last Friday has been busy trying to sort of synthesize all those comments so that we can evaluate them in respect to the draft policy that's been out for public comment. So, Ms. Williams.
Good afternoon. As Mrs. O'Neill stated, the board took tentative action on this policy JEE student transfers on November 12th, and it was in fact sent out for public comment the very next morning, November 13th, and there have been multiple press releases, tweets from both the board and the Superintendent's Office of Communication, as well as individual board members. It has been posted multiple times through the Office of Communication on the quick notes, as well as internally through the bulletin for staff. Also, communications updates directly to principals who were encouraged to send it out to their individual school communities. And it was picked up in the Bethesda Beat magazine for articles at least 3 times, twice actually after the public comment period began, and once announcing that it would be coming to the board for tentative action. Also, staff has taken time to meet with a number of community groups. We met with the student member of the board's advisory council. We met with the minority scholars. We also met with principals in central services, and we sent it directly to several community groups, such as the 1977-2 groups. So we've taken a lot of effort to get the document out into the community, but as you say, Mrs. O'Neill, that push at the end of last week certainly made quite a difference. And we are now standing at 535 comments have been received. In your materials, we have provided for you a couple of different ways that we've sorted through it, trying to make it most accessible to the board members as well as to the members of the public. I'd like to kind of walk you through the materials that you have, and then come back and address some of the issues that arose through the comment period more specifically. So you have a document that's 3 or 4 pages long, that looks like 6 pages long, that is a summary of comments received on draft policy JEE from November 12th until December 18th. And in this document, we identify sort of an assessment of how the commenters identified themselves, and then we've done our best to sort the comments by topic and by comment number. Keep in mind that some of our commenters commented on more than one topic, so comments may show up, and we were managing a significant volume in the last couple days. I want to just pause right there and say I want to give a particular word of thanks to the policy team, particularly Ms. Maureen McNamara and Mrs. Sally Davis, who's in the audience with us, who have really rallied to prepare these materials for you today. So they're sorted in a number of ways, and sometimes commenters may have addressed more than one topic within their comments, and so when you see them in other versions, they may present slightly differently, but our intention is to show the themes that arose. So the board members have in your materials a document which is titled Confidential for Board of Education and MCPS staff members. These are the actual comments that have been downloaded to a spreadsheet for ease of reading. Very similar version of this document, titled Comments for Public Distribution, has been made available to the public for review. We made best efforts to, even though policy BFA states that public comments become part of the public record, including the name of the person submitting the comment, we still make best efforts to not put personally identifiable information out into the public. So the version that is publicly available, staff has made best efforts to remove student names or other references that would enable you to identify a person, particularly a student, because some of the circumstances described are quite personal. You also have a version of the comments where we've sorted them by the 4 top themes that arose. And this is a representative sampling of the comments in each category, not each and every one of them, but we wanted you to have a quick and easy flavor, if you will, of the comments by topic. Also in your materials, board member Mrs. Carla Silvestri submitted some comments directly to the committee, and we've provided those separately, and I know that you would like to spend some time looking at her comments specifically. So unless you have any comments or suggestions at this point, I will start by directing our attention to the summary of comments, which lists the topical index of comments. As we stated, we have received 535 comments. The greatest number of those comments came from persons who identified as an MCPS parent or guardian. There's no check or anything on this, check and balance for this. People self-identify, and we take their word for how they present themselves in the process. So the largest percentage came from those that are a parent or guardian, and then not closely, but the next highest number of persons who identify themselves as both a parent, guardian, and a staff member, and that's a note because of part of the content of this particular staff. And then the other categories are MCPS staff members, community members, and students. So the first category of comments is regarding the topic of how changes in this policy might impact families that are participating in an immersion program. We will note that the majority of the comments that we received were from the Rock Creek Forest Westland BCC community of schools. However, there are certainly similarities and concerns in other feeder patterns for our immersion families. This community is the one we just happened to hear from the most. And so the concern expressed largely expressed in this category of comments is that so the issue is by eliminating the current opportunity that's currently provided in the policy, where a student who is attending a middle school on a COSA may continue to the high school in that feeder pattern. The point is well taken in a number of the comments that it's not abundantly clear how that impacts the immersion students. However, we do clarify in both the regulation and the supporting documents, the COSA booklets and so forth, that the process for continuation for immersion students from middle school to high school is under that provision of the policy. So you may want to, that's something the board may want to consider providing clarification for.
Yeah, I do, just of note, I mean, the neighborhood children at Rock Creek Forest do not articulate to Westland. They go to Silver Creek. And we really had not heard from, like, Bayard Rustin, which doesn't, the Chinese immersion does not articulate to Julius West. It goes to Hoover, and then the automatic is to Churchill. And Maryvale French immersion goes not to Wood Middle School, which is the neighborhood middle school for Maryvale, but it goes to Gaithersburg Middle School. So, but it seems I guess it went out on the Rock Creek Forest Spanish immersion list, so it's really been the comments have pretty much been limited to Rock Creek Forest. What does the current regulations say, which is actually how things are implemented? I mean, that it's just an automatic, they're not, and they go to Westland. We don't have a high school immersion program, so it's a matter of preference or continuation, but we don't offer high school immersion.
So it's kind of a fine line distinction because the COSA process is built primarily on hardship, a few other opportunities. It's described as a notice of intention to continue, and it's on the COSA form, and they submit the COSA form and indicate they have an intention to continue to the next level. But once it goes through the COSA process, it's received in the office and so forth, it's processed. And in the regulation, it specifically, that's the process how it works, and it outlines that in the regulation.
I had a conversation with a parent whose child is, came up through the Rock Creek Forest Spanish immersion, went to Westland, and is at BCC now. And this parent said she did not fill out a COSA, that her child is at BCC, that it was news to her.
So I can't respond as to why she would not have.
But the regulation expressly refers to the immersion students in the pass-through from middle school to high school. So I think that if it's the board's intention to go either way, to either say that that there should be a pass-through or shouldn't be a pass-through, clarifying that either in the policy or making it clear that it needs to be clarified in the regulation so that the community is clear which way we're going, I think it is important because currently as it's being practiced, and it says in the regulation that students on COSAs in the middle school, as well as immersion students in immersion programs in middle school, articulate to the high school in the feeder pattern. So the language has changed. We understand the intention of the board members was to transition out of the automatic pass-through. So if the change is, we should clarify who that change applies to, if that makes sense.
I think that, obviously the regulation and the policy should be, mirror images of each other so that it's clear. The other thing was that when we walked through the policy, in that section, it had allowed for grandfathering, but the immersion I think, needs to be looked at as a separate issue from the other COSAs. So I think when we go back and walk through the policy, we need to clarify the language.
Okay.
And, and just to be clear for the record, when we looked at all, that we had that volume of policies, no one had this automatic from middle school to high school. In fact, many of the districts required a year-by-year look at the COSAs. So, and I also note that there were some who believed that COSAs contribute to overcrowding in our schools. So that was a comment that we had received. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the section of immersion. The next section, under COSAs, we had quite a variety of issues related to both the process for obtaining COSAs and the reasons and which reasons were favored and not favored for having a COSA, and the timing and so forth. So as you can see, there was, continuing this conversation about the immersion, there were a number of commenters requesting about elementary to middle and middle to high transition once you have a COSA. And so those comments did not seem specific to the immersion. They was just seeking clarification on the transition from one school to the next once you have received, or which level to the next once you have received a COSA. Another category that was frequently referenced is adding some sort of reference to a student who has a 504 plan, an IEP, or any other type of disability as part of the consideration in the COSA process. We'll note that it's not necessarily referenced in the policy, but it is referenced clearly in the process documents that if a student has special needs that cannot be addressed in every school and only certain schools, then those COSAs are forwarded to the special education office for handling. So again, that was the topic that came up frequently. There were a number of persons who spoke, and some rather passionately, that there should be more flexibility in terms of specific family circumstances. We heard frequently from families that were blended families or otherwise subject to a divorce and had multiple additional circumstances to manage because of their family circumstances. So there were suggestions for consideration of family, considering family circumstances as a category for granting a COSA. There was a lot of energy around considering basically the capacity of the school, of schools that were requested in the COSA process. If a school was enrolled, then that should facilitate a COSA approval. Whereas if a school is overcrowded, that it should not. So there were quite a number of comments that addressed that issue.
And just on that one, there's already language, and the policy committee in the tentative action clarified that language further about the tie between capacity and COSAs.
Well, that's always been part of the process with working with the principals and with pupil personnel workers. So this would not be new.
That is correct, but also I think there's been a lot of talk about making it so that it's a much more lenient process if the school is under-enrolled, for example. If a child wants to leave an overcrowded school. I don't know if that's the same type of thing, but that's what I hear a lot of.
I mean, we put in about overcrowding, but we don't have the underutilization.
Right.
But I mean, the MCPS, if it's below 80%, then, I think that we ought to circle back to whether we should consider that as well.
I think so.
I mean, because we use an 80 to 100%,
Right.
try to maintain that. So if a school was below 80%, maybe we should.
Yep.
So let's circle back, put that on
Okay.
our parking lot, come back.
Okay. So Another category that occurred frequently in what we've categorized as the siblings, as the COSA category, general COSA concerns is siblings. So you will recall that the prior language in the policy tied the ability to receive a COSA without demonstration of a hardship based on a sibling attending the school to which the student wants to attend, where the student wants to attend. That would be if the older sibling is there and the younger, and the committee suggested removing the distinction between older and younger. So to that extent, you broadened the ability of the sibling link, the opportunity for the sibling link. However, the sibling link was limited to elementary schools. And so there were quite a few members of the community who commented that expressed that there should be an opportunity for continuing to receive COSAs based on the sibling attending the school at both the middle school and the high school level. A lot of conversation about, not only ease, primarily the discussions revolved around convenience of the family to have the children in the family going to one school, but also what that does for the relationship of the students, the siblings themselves, the ability of the families to be more engaged in the school, parents volunteering, etc., because they're all the kids are in one place. So a number of reasons, and you'll see there's a lot of energy given the number of comments. And when you look at our packet, where we've sorted the comments by themes, you'll see that we've got about 10 pages of comments, representative sampling of comments specific to that sibling question. More on the sibling issue, a few comments are regarding returning to the prior paradigm of sibling preference in the immersion application process. About 2 years ago, the board modified the policy so that siblings would not necessarily continue into the immersion program, but could go into the lottery but could attend in the general capacity,
And we
general
have
program.
in there a long grandfathering. So,
Yes.
It's been continuing in effect because of the very long grandfathering. It was an attempt to have a more equitable and open process.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I don't know if we ever got any feedback. I can't remember. Did we get feedback on how that has been,
well, because
The
it
increase
was
of
like,
grandfather does
you
not-
could be we're still in the process of the grandfathering because it was such a long and lenient.
Right.
But it was an attempt, to open more seats.
Right, I was just
and
curious on
There was
that.
also a weighting factor. Don't we have a weight that,
You're right. So any child who has an older sibling who was enrolled in a language immersion program during the 17-18 school year. So if a student was in kindergarten in 17-18, I guess they're in second grade now. So they have, still more time for this grade.
So it's still
grandfather.
working
Right,
through
we're still working through it. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question that you may have already said, and I apologize if I'm being repetitive and I missed it. What are, after these sentences or whatever, there's a number, and then there are other numbers that just,
So the numbers, so for example, return to the prior paradigm, number 8, 102, 117, those numbers align with the actual comments.
okay.
So if you go to comment 8, for example,
I
you'll
got
see.
it. That's sort of what I thought. I thought maybe the first number, though, was the number of people who commented on it.
Okay,
So,
no.
okay.
No. Each number is an individual commenter.
And obviously, I don't have the binder that does the crosswalk with other districts, but I don't remember, but what was the practice of siblings generally?
It was mixed. There were a few districts that permitted the sibling link as we've described, but they were pretty prescriptive. If you were there for specific reasons, like if you were there on an IEP, a sibling was there on an IEP, or sibling was there because they'd been transferred because of their safety was at issue for the one sibling and they were moved. There were not a lot of districts. My recollection is that there are not a lot of districts that allowed, I mean, we could look it up, but that we have a chart of each of the categories, but there were not a lot of districts that were as flexible as we have been in terms of allowing siblings to attend.
So, okay, if I had a child attending Richard Montgomery's IB program, an application program, and I wanted my younger child to be at the same school, that is not, or is?
So under the revisions, the current revisions, so under the current, the policy that's currently in place, you would have the opportunity to apply there for your younger child to attend in the regular program, not to go to the IB program. Under the current revisions, because it's not an elementary school, you would no longer have that opportunity.
You know, one of my concerns is our high schools are very overcrowded, but we also have a variety of programs across the district. I mean, a variety of opportunities. So, I see the merit in the elementary years, but I'm not necessarily persuaded about the middle school and high school.
Okay.
Okay.
There were a few references to the fact that COSA should be reviewed every year, and because childcare and/or hardships could change. So presently, MCPS does not, and this policy does not, set forth a requirement that the COSA be changed every year. In fact, we say once you're admitted, you continue to the end of that level. We're newly introducing this reapply after, well, we already have to apply from elementary to middle. And this comment is consistent with, as Ms. O'Neill has already referenced, most districts that we reviewed require a review of the basis of the COSA at the end of every school year. So it's not an automatic continuation in any capacity. We did receive a couple of comments suggesting that we create an opportunity for mid-year COSAs, so that if a family or a student should have a particular circumstance that warrants the need to move in during the course of the current year.
They can't do that now?
That's not the current practice.
Yes, they can. If there's a new factor that emerges, they absolutely can, and I think that's addressed by the.
And I think that might be related to the consortia concern.
Sorry, and feel free to come up. But there are two different questions. One is if an emergency situation comes up mid-year, a student can transfer. Another is the question about if there's the hardship process and how it interacts with the consortia that we've discussed at, I believe, previously at policy management committees. That process is a process that goes on a yearly basis. But a new facts, a situation like a bullying issue that emerges in the middle of the school year requires a move that could warrant a COSA.
Okay, so those are the highlights, if you will, the main themes that arose regarding basically process around the COSAs themselves. The next category of comments are around the section with respect to children of staff. So as you know, currently, staff are treated no differently than other parents and families in the community. If they want their child to attend any school other than their home school, they apply through the COSA process demonstrating a hardship or a family move or a sibling link like all other families in our schools. And the language that's proposed would provide an opportunity for staff who work at Title I schools, innovative school year calendar schools, or focus schools to have their children attend that school there with them. So we had a number of comments regarding enabling that opportunity to be made available to all staff, not just staff at those particular schools. And a comment about only full-time staff at that school. Why do they have to be only full-time, whereas part-time staff could benefit from it as well? Did have a few comments suggesting that this provision was inconsistent with what was perceived as restricting of transfers in other sections of the policy. So a number of commenters picked up on that point, took that perspective of it. A couple of comments: the staff should not teach their own children. We will reference that under our conflict of interest regulation. It currently addresses that, and one commenter referenced that they agree that this type of provision will help with retaining teachers. And a comment about the Montgomery County residency requirement. When we go through the policy, we agree that there could be some clarification about the bona fide residency or general residency requirements, just a clarification, so we can talk about that at that time. The next category, really since the weekend, primarily since the weekend push, we've gotten a significant number of comments that seem to be more related to the concept of boundary change than it is to transfers, to student transfers through the COSA process. So you'll see this is actually the longest list on the page. And some comments said why do move forward with this while we're in the middle of the boundary process? Other comments said, so making it a little more aligned with the policy issues in this policy itself. They're saying wait until the boundary process has been completed before making these kinds of changes. And then there were a lot of comments regarding, we have reference that say this is not permissible if it's because of a boundary change. So there was a lot of energy around wanting a COSA if their child had been, wanting to be able to obtain a COSA if their child had been moved. And then there were a significant number of comments that were directly related to boundary changes and not necessarily this policy.
Well, I mean, in terms overall of ceasing work on the COSA, I mean, we have people every year, and we have, I mean, I think this policy was originally adopted like in the 70s. I mean, when you look at the bottom, you can see the first time it was adopted, I think it was 72. And, you know, there has been a policy for a very long time because people do have circumstances that require them to obtain a change of school assignment for a variety of reasons. So we have to have a policy in place, and in fact, this policy at one point was challenged all the way up through the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which resulted in basically the policy that pretty much exists today. You know, in my time since that Fourth Circuit decision. So, I mean, we're not stopping it because of the boundary analysis, because there will be several thousand people this year who will seek change of school assignment for a variety of reasons, and we have to have a document, we have to have documents or policies in place to grant, you know, those particular circumstances, hardships or others. So, I mean, that's my 2 cents on stopping or putting aside this policy. This policy has been in place for a very long time in a variety of ways.
Okay. And then what we've...
Just before, and just to be clear, there's only one place in the policy as it's currently constructed where it expressly refers to boundaries, and that's around the intersection with the siblings. So if we were to come back and look at that when we go through itself, but that's the only place where there's an express connection between this.
So at the bottom of page 3 and continuing on to the end of page 5, there's just sort of a various and sundry comments that arose that we thought that you should be aware of. The first few were, we did have a good number that said they agreed with the edits of the policy. Some told us that they disagree without giving a specific reason. A significant number thought that they needed more time and that there should be more discussion of the topic. There was the concern expressed about mental health concerns should be considered as extenuating circumstances. Well, of course, that's something that we explicitly referenced in this process. And then there are general comments about what they think that, how they think the COSA process should be structured. So, if there are no any more on that, I'll move on. I'll give you a moment before I move on to the next thing.
Do we, I can't remember, I had seen, do we include ROTC as part of the specialty program?
So, ROTC is not currently specifically referenced, but it was one of the examples of a sequence of courses
Right.
that we addressed in the academic transfers section, and the staff is preparing more explicit documentation in the COSA process and a web page that will be dedicated to it and so forth. So more information about a variety of offerings that might be available.
Yeah,
would be
because
provided.
even Ms. Silvestri in her list of questions to the policy committee asked about the sequence of courses, the academic programs. And I think it's a little,
Yeah,
people are
it's unclear.
unclear and vague about that, but that would need to be clarified.
So, with respect to that, we are proposing to list in the COSA booklet, where we'll provide more specific information, some examples. And so for a multi-year sequence of related courses, so we have two categories from the academic transfers: a multi-year sequence of related courses or a multi-year single course sequence. So the first category, multi-year sequence of related courses, refers to a sequence of related courses within a career-related program of study not offered at the student's home schools that culminates with a capstone course and/or program completion. And some examples include professional restaurant management program, and that you'd have Restaurant Management 1, Restaurant Management 2, and a capstone internship or dual enrollment course. Another category might be Certified Professional Horticulturist Program. You'd have a sequence of related courses including Foundations of Horticulture, Plant Production, Landscape Design and Management, and Environmental Internship. So those are some categories of examples of the category multi-year sequence of related courses. And with respect to a multi-year single course sequence, some examples might include languages that aren't taught at all schools through at least level 3, or specialized performing arts sequences through at least level 3. So you might have, for example, Arabic 1, Arabic 2, Arabic 3, or tap dance 1, tap dance 2, tap dance 3. Those are some examples that are being provided would be provided in the COSA booklet with a reference to a particular web page that gives more specific details.
Okay. I appreciate that because it is confusing even when you read it out. And then I had another question about the active military families, but I know we don't necessarily specify that, but that could potentially be considered a hardship for a family, correct?
I mean, I don't know just the fact that they're active military, but it would depend on, I know that we have the compact.
Hi.
Good afternoon, board members. So there are some requirements from the federal government working with our Office of Student Family Support and Engagement around how to support military families as they transition into the school system, how to support when they are actively coming in, orders. Sometimes we have to wait for orders to be able to think about placements. So I am happy to provide, and I don't have the details here, about how we tackle some of those requests for where they're going to attend. And sometimes they come through our international admissions office because they have been out of the country as well, and how we tackle those families. But we do provide both supports for school placement and academic and transcript pieces that are much more flexible because these families move around a lot and they could be coming from, different places. So I'm happy to provide Stephanie that information for you.
And so I think that's to follow up on Dr. Navarro. That's handled through the military compact, not as a COSA piece.
Okay.
Well, and I do know that at one point we reassigned, I think, the Walter Reed Bethesda Naval
was a few
to
years ago,
Bethesda
to
Elementary because
Right.
we had a specific request
From the military families.
to do that. And so we did a boundary change to accomplish that.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. So can I ask one quick question? I know we don't have to take a ton of time with it, and you can do it as a follow-up if it's more convenient. But someone had asked me about their child applying to like Edison or Seneca Valley, and what courses would be eliminated from their schedule to compensate the amount of time that they would be taking a career pathway program. Do you understand what I'm asking? And I didn't know the answer to that, so.
So usually this work happens in the counseling office because it's not just about 1 year, but they do a multi-year sequence of courses, a multi-year sequence of plans so that they can accommodate graduation requirements as well as taking into account current state of having to lose the period of time when they are going back and forth from that. So students actually have to develop a multi-year plan because it could be a question about where the options are to take another course at another time of the year or in the future year. So that's how they are organizing the students that are moving. And I know that Edison works, the counselors at Edison are working very closely with those students that are going to come to figure out what is that multi-year plan for them.
Okay, and then in terms of the COSA, if you are a student at one school, but you want to, now that we're making the change to those programs being part of the comprehensive high school, is that addressed at all in the COSA? So in other words, if you have a child at one school, but they want to take graphic design at Edison, for example, instead of going to Wheaton, is there anything that addresses a COSA where they would be able to stay at the school that they're at now? So let's say I'm going to use my daughter as an example. Let's say my daughter is at Quince Orchard and she decides she wants to take automotive repair, and so she would apply to either Edison or Seneca Valley. I guess, next year would be Seneca Valley. Is there any discussion in terms of the COSA's aspect if she wanted to continue at Quince Orchard and just take the classes at Seneca Valley?
So I don't think this is handled through the
not
COSA.
Oh.
It is, what the student will do is continue to attend their home school and be able so at Edison it's a little bit different because at Edison they will go back to their home school and just attend Edison.
I thought that was switching
Seneca
to
Valley.
partnering with Wheaton, though.
Well, so
not yet.
one of the things that will happen for the ninth graders, not through the COSA process, but will happen with the cohort of ninth graders is the opportunity for them to be able to think of that as a complex and be able to be there all day. And that's the cohort transition that we're trying to do. And be able to make those discussions. And I think to the full board, we will be coming forward with more discussions about the recommendations from the CTE study around what's the relationship of the Edison Wheaton campus. But one of the things that we started working with was students who actually not want to go back to their home school, but want to stay close,
Right.
and how can they access Edison, and that work does start this coming fall.
Okay.
And so it's not
But
part
your
of this
example
process.
about ROTC, we have had kids who
Right.
were not Seneca Valley students, who went to Seneca Valley for ROTC.
Right.
And come back.
And then
We
come
have
back
that-
to their home
yeah.
school
Right.
for
We
the
have
rest
those
of the day.
buses happening right now. I know exactly those bus routes that take kids up to different schools, and they come back because they're doing JROTC.
Okay,
And-
see, I think I was confused. I'm
When
sorry.
I was in ROTC, I had a few friends that did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good. I think I was confused because I thought with the Seneca Valley most specifically, and then eventually with Edison through Wheaton, that if they applied for one of the programs, that they would then be a student there. So if they wanted to go back to their home school, they'd have to ask for a COSA. Is what,
No, and I
Okay.
apologize. I think that's that. But if you're having that question, we need to make sure we clarify in our documents. And
Yeah.
remember, Seneca Valley is a little different than the Edison Wheaton complex, because we have seats at Seneca Valley where if you want to go to that program, you are a Seneca Valley student. And I think the question is a little bit different because I think one of your questions is how do we handle if you want to just go to Seneca Valley for a pathway and you
Right.
want to come back to Quince Orchard versus, the other way, whereas actually you want to stay because
Right.
you can
Some
choose to
places
stay
are.
all day
Yeah.
at Seneca Valley. And to be perfectly honest, I think part of what we've been trying to do as we open Seneca Valley is, and based on sort of the community feedback, is also encourage the opportunity for kids to be whole day and not have
Right.
these problems of these courses.
right?
And so because Edison and Wheaton currently exist in the way that they exist, we still gave some flexibility for students that wanted to be part of the Wheaton campus and be able to access Edison and not have to travel. But more of those discussions are coming forward as we tighten that up.
Great, okay, thank you.
Okay. Stephanie? Go.
So the next item in your materials that I want you to take a look at is an email sent from board member Mrs. Carla Silvestri to each of you as members of this committee. Have that in your materials. She identified several lines, sections in the policy that she thought that could use some clarification and/or she had some questions about. So, sorry. I'm referring to the December 15th email from Ms. Carla Silvestri to the members of this committee regarding her comments specific to policy JEE. She set forth a few questions for the board's consideration and comments. So I'll walk through those. She started with respect to the topic of childcare and suggests that we consider specifying that this is considered for elementary students only. She thinks that more often than not, students who are beyond elementary age, unless they have some sort of special circumstances, are not granted COSAs. So it may be helpful to state that up front.
It would save a lot of time and whatever for parents, frustration, I think.
I mean, I think that we should have some clarifying, maybe it would
Yeah.
not be clarifying, but under particular circumstances at the middle school level. I mean, occasionally we've seen some people even at the high school level asking, and I don't think that's a reasonable request, and certainly legally it's, but I mean, there may be particular circumstances at the middle school that
Right.
would warrant, for consideration.
So your thinking is rather than limit it to elementary, I'm just saying, am I following you, that rather than limit it to elementary, we specify that extenuating circumstance, must be
Extenuating
particularly
circumstance
extenuating
in the middle
circumstances
school.
for elementary, okay.
Or
Beyond middle
extenuating
school.
circumstances at the middle school level.
Yeah, would be necessary.
Right. But not opening for high school.
No.
And I think it needs, extenuating circumstances.
Okay.
We'll get to that
But
section.
that does mean then that we would have to add in the specifying that it's intended for elementary schools, but with extreme extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
Would add the middle schools.
Right.
Because I agree, it should specify in there that it's intended for elementary school
Yes.
children.
Okay, her second question is about line 67 in the policy. She asks that for examples about, or for what would be approved regarding a mental, emotional, or well-being, because they get a lot, the board gets a lot of anxiety appeals because kids want to go to a school where their friends are going. So we talked about these examples at the board when we were at the board in January 8th of this year, and again at September 12th. And some of the examples that were provided at that time, parents provide, at those times, I should say, parents provide documentation of ongoing therapy or mental health issues, and the school verifies that the student had a bad experience there with other students and strongly advises the new placement. And that's, with documentation from mental health providers. Another example is if and this was provided in the January 8th memo to Dr. Daca from Mr. Sivan and myself, as an example, if there's ongoing bullying concern that's been reported and not resolved, a unique hardship might be found. Also, students who have a level of anxiety or another social emotional well-being issue that impacts their learning, which may be caused by situational factors at the particular school. And we were able to get, in responding to thinking about Ms. Silvestri's concerns, we've got some additional feedback from the Appeals and Transfer Unit, and we typically ask if there's a student who has a diagnosis, a documented mental health diagnosis, and they're really having a difficult time at the school. We would ask to speak to the therapist, and we would also follow up with the school to see what someone at the school to see their perception of the student's impact of this illness. And certainly when it comes to the documentation that's provided, they look to see that there's an ongoing relationship with the therapist or other healthcare provider, as opposed to one that is pretty close in time and to the submission.
I think the language as is sufficient in this section. And recognizing that not all of our colleagues even thought that this should be included, that we should go back to the old language, I think that this is sufficient. I don't think we need to expand on it.
I agree, but I would, I know I've mentioned it before, but would again, I don't know if our current COSA application, I know that, you have to sign that you agree to, and I know that it's listed on there, but I think it would be helpful for us to have parents have to specifically sign that they understand that if they have their child have a COSA for elementary school, that there's a strong likelihood they may not have it for middle school, and that's something that they need to take into consideration, because I think what happens is parents get a COSA for elementary school, and then their kids get anxiety about leaving the friends that they've made, and that was a decision that was made, when they first applied for the COSA, in my opinion.
Dr. Taka?
We've had a number of appeals come to us about the anxiety, and it has to do with kids living across the street from other kids and having gone to elementary school with them, but then when they got to middle school, it was a different school that they went to. So this is not unusual to have this come up, and we've been dealing with it. Well, not changing the school at all, but recommending that they work with the principal and with the counselors to find out what programs there are at the school for the child. Now, the other part, though, we looked at some of the other, the mental and emotional part. Some of the other counties are much more specific than we are. They said it has to come from a doctor or a therapist. We're not saying that. Our language is a little bit looser than that. And I think that's
specifically say
appropriate.
that if the documentation is not available, that staff can communicate with staff our staff here at central office can communicate with staff at the school that know the student, so that
Right.
students aren't their chances aren't reduced by the fact that they don't have access to that level of care or report.
So, anyway, I believe we need to leave the language as is, recognizing that the full board was not even in support of, in this area of having any kind of language. So, I don't know, what's the will of the committee? To leave this or to leave it? Okay? All right?
So her third item of concern is referencing line 190 in the policy, and basically she's seeking clarification that the requirement 1-year waiting period for athletics is limited to high school.
And I agree with that, because it's intended to prevent people from attempting to recruit for the interscholastic sports. So I move that we clarify the language so that it's high school only.
Yep.
Is there-
Second?
Just everybody,
Oh, yeah.
all in favor? Okay, all right.
So at line 219, she suggests adding capacity consideration regarding academic programs, since this is one of the categories in the policy change. For example, what if Einstein is overcrowded, but the IB program at Einstein is not?
So there's, just to orient folks, there's general language in the policy as amended that talks about, for all of the applications, we're looking at school capacity, including grade level and cluster capacity. And then I think on the specific academic transfers, there's also language about capacity that's broad. So I think that it gives flexibility for staff to design a process for academic transfers that takes into consideration program and building, because even though a program may have space, there may also be staffing and the other things that we have to take into account. So I think that the language is broad enough as it is, if there's an opportunity to take this into account, but also recognizes all of the other issues that go into program capacity versus school capacity.
Yeah, there may be space at the IB program, but not necessarily in some of the other classes that are required classes for the students.
And also, I mean, even if the program is not filled by enough students, the school is still over capacity at the end of the day.
I just wonder, while we're in this section about the underutilized schools that are should we have a, schools that are below 80%, since that's the, we use ideal school utilization between 80 and 100.
I thought we had already discussed doing that, right? Making a consideration for under.
Well, we just discussed it, but it's not in
No, I
here.
mean, I thought last time, right,
But
before.
can we add schools that are underutilized?
Yeah, that there would be given
Josh, do you have a
preference to, or something like that.
So I think so if it just is something that's considered in this list of considerations on page or lines 213 through
Right.
227, that's one thing. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
So.
Is that broader than
something
what's
like-
at number 4 at line
Yeah, and
223?
4. Yeah, I would, in
Or
that
maybe-
section 4,
Or even do a number 5 that is something like additional consideration will be, or additional,
I think
some leniency about.
special, or,
Yeah.
you know,
Will be-
special consideration for schools that are underutilized, below the 80%.
And I know that
Not that we have
one thing
many,
when we
but-
talked about this,
Yeah.
and we did talk about it, Ms. Mandrowski is correct in earlier conversations, and I know channeling Ms. McGuire, who would say this if she were here, is one of the challenges with building capacity, and I'm going to try to get this right so somebody can chime in, is that we may have a elementary school that's under capacity, but the middle and high schools are over capacity. So I think if we were to say something about this, we'd want to say a building under capacity, taking into consideration further the building within the cluster, because we just need to be careful about that.
Right. So could we do it, I think it should be at number 5.
I think so too.
But yes, definitely looking at, you still would need to look at grade level consideration and cluster capacity, but.
But if they have to
that's-
reapply for
that's in
COSA
4.
each,
Grade level.
Yeah, but
and-
we're talking about, that's about really, see that as overutilization. And
Okay.
this is about
Okay.
schools that fall under the 80%.
I just think we need to have a caveat, not written in there, but we need to let the public know that we, at this moment, do not have high schools that are 80%, and that the rolling population has gone to middle school, and middle schools are very crowded, and it's going to move to the high schools pretty soon.
but they do have to reapply, so.
Right.
If if the elementary school is empty.
Give them hope.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
Agreed.
all right, moving on.
Number 5 talks about the requirement to reapply from middle to high school, references comments from Dr. Smith regarding not wanting to split articulate students from middle to high schools. And so she is suggesting that we consider this statement from Dr. Smith potentially being inconsistent with our intention to remove the automatic middle to high school articulation that's provided in the policy.
I don't know, my understanding of split articulation is that if you have an elementary school, you don't want to have them go to 2 different middle schools, and the same for middle schools. So I don't know whether that's going to apply here or not.
We have quite a few situations where there are split articulations, elementary to middle, and I think it's going to become even more challenging as we become more crowded and, and with the likelihood that we're adding 2 new high schools to the mix. So I think we can leave the language as is.
Okay. And the next one on the list, number 6, is this topic that we just talked about a few minutes ago about the types of courses that qualify for the academic transfer. So I'll move us along to number 7, where she's referencing line 295 of the policy. If we can create a lottery weighting process for immersion that includes socioeconomics and farm status, should we consider this in granting COSAs to give farm students priority in accessing programs in order to help with economic desegregation? So I'll remind the committee that that there was extensive discussion regarding considering socioeconomic status in the COSA process when we brought the topic to the table on January 8th of this year. And there's a lot of detail about this can be found in the memo to the board from Dr. Daka, as well as the memo to Dr. Daka from Mr. Sivan and myself, which are providing the materials you've been receiving. So this topic was discussed at length at the board, and at that time, the board did not direct the committee to pursue that approach further.
Okay. Moving on.
Okay, and numbers 8 and 9, they're presented separately, but they're primarily about the immersion and the impact of the automatic articulation from middle school to high school change and how it impacts the immersion families, particularly those at Rock Creek Forest is referenced here. So we've had that discussion earlier. I don't know if the board committee wants further discussion, but.
And I thought that when we were going through the issues, the general issues, that we decided that we needed to clarify about the immersion language.
Right, and to align it and expand upon what's referenced in the regulation. Align it with and expand upon what's referenced in the regulation.
I also believe, I mean, let's see, I can't find it now.
It's online. I'm sorry. It's on lines 233 through 239.
That I think that we need to expand the grandfathering. You know, while we have heard from Rock Creek Forest, we haven't heard from Chinese immersion parents, Bayard Rustin, Maryvale. I mean, I don't know, but I would offer that the way we have this grandfathering is from who enter sixth grade. I would offer that we expand it down to third grade.
Yep.
And so that's a more generous grandfathering. So children who enter third grade during the school year 2020 to 2021 be the start for the grandfathering in this.
And I think to address the immersion question, if you want immersion to be covered by this, the clarity would be something like on 237, a student attending a middle school on a COSA, as well as those in middle school immersion programs, seeking to attend the high school and the middle school's feeder pattern. So that would be language if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, I think it probably is worth having a sentence saying this doesn't apply to. But so
I think
we need clarity from the board.
No, I think that your first offering of language would be good.
Can you say it again?
Sorry. So
sorry,
the second sentence starting on page 35 with that page 9, line 235. There aren't 35 pages of the policy. Would say, starting with students who enter third grade, to Miss O'Neill's point, during school year 2020-21, a student attending a middle school on a COSA, as well as a student in a middle school immersion program, seeking to attend the high school and the middle school's feeder pattern, will have to reapply for a COSA.
Okay.
Is there agreement from everyone on that?
Yeah.
And with the third grade is
Definitely.
the beginning of the
Yeah.
grandfathering? Okay.
Well, how did we pick third grade?
So you're from second grade, it's the current second graders
Right.
on, I mean, all about, so everyone who's in middle school now and from second grade on
Right.
in the programs would be.
I was just curious why not like second grade, so that it was the current first graders.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty generous.
I think so too.
Okay, so I think that.
Staff is questioning whether the third grade extension is for all COSAs or just for the immersion. Okay, then we need to have a slate, and then I think we should have a new sentence. So the sentence would say, starting with students who enter the sixth grade during school year 2021, that sentence would be the same, and then we'd have a new sentence that says, what I just read, but it would just apply for
The immersion.
So there would then be 3 sentences in this paragraph. The first sentence, a sentence that applies generally to COSAs that would start in 6th grade, and then a sentence that applies just to middle school immersion programs that would start in the 3rd grade.
Right. Because this way, the general COSAs in middle school, I mean, people who are, well, currently 5th graders, I mean, because if we're talking about being in 6th grade next year, so that 6th, 7th, and 8th are grandfathered in the automatic to high school without having to reapply for a COSA. If you have a COSA in middle school for the, rising 6th graders through 8th, and then, but the immersion, we're grandfathering back to 3rd grade.
And I should take the opportunity to really appreciate Miss Jeannie Franklin, Miss Terry Musey, Miss Sherry Perry, Miss Mary Dempsey, and Mr. Steve Neff for all of their work to both implement our current policies, but also to be willing to think out of the box about ways to respond to the board's ideas and creativity as they work through things that they are used to every which way, and knowing these, but really appreciate their work here.
Yes, we do.
But since you started that, I'd like to say the hundreds of cases that we do not get because they're able to work with the parents and with the schools. So we get the ones that are a little bit more difficult, and we have to consider those. Thank you for your work.
Okay, so that takes us through Ms. Silvestri's.
That takes us through Ms. Silvestri's, and Mrs. O'Neill, we have a couple of suggestions we'd like to make with respect to comments that, sorry, I keep forgetting that. We have a couple of suggestions we'd like to make upon reviewing the comments and just looking over the document. Our suggestions are primarily for points of clarification. So I would refer you to line 30 of the line 30 of the policy. In the comments, there was a question about whether or not families had to meet one or more of the criteria to qualify for the COSA, or if one was sufficient. So we're suggesting that on line 30, we add the language, just the word, 2 words, any of. So that sentence would read, a student may apply for a COSA based on any of the following criteria.
Absolutely.
Okay. On page 4, starting at line 93, we're suggesting some edits to this language regarding family moves, simply because a couple of concerns came up. Moves that happen during the school year and don't align with the February to April timing and next year and so forth, as well as the fact that they should be submitted close in time, right at the time of the move, as opposed to sometime later in the year, and acknowledging that those requests will be granted. So the proposed change would read, students whose families have moved within Montgomery County during the school year, that's new language, who wish their student, new language there, to continue attending their former home school may request a COSA without demonstrating a unique hardship. Such request should be submitted immediately after the family moves, and such request will be granted for the remainder of the current school year only. No other changes, with the exception that students in grades 11 or 12 may be granted a COSA to stay through the high school graduation. So it just clarifies, if you have a move, if your family has a move during the school year, please apply immediately, and it will be granted.
I'm comfortable with that.
And then one other section that we're suggesting on page 6.
Excuse me one second. Can I just clarify? So if a child's in middle school, they cannot finish out the years at the middle school if the family moves?
No, we didn't say that.
Well, this only reads grades 11 or 12, I thought. So that's what I was. No.
So you want to come up?
So the sixth grader or the seventh grade would finish the year,
But
not
not
the
get to
level.
stay for seventh grade.
Right.
That's correct. At the elementary and middle level, it's to finish the school year only, barring a unique hardship.
Okay. Okay. I guess that's.
Okay.
To do it
On page 6 at B, where am I? 148. This is with regards to staff members who are eligible to have their child to come to the school. The language presently reads, the staff member is at B, the staff member is a Montgomery County resident. We're suggesting adding there, and the student is otherwise eligible to enroll in MCPS. Specifically, the context in which this issue arose in the comments was that if the staff person is a Montgomery County resident, but the child lives outside of Montgomery County, could the child come in for the purpose of attending school and then go back home? And so we are saying, and the student is otherwise eligible to enroll in MCPS, that would not meet the criteria for bona fide residence in Montgomery County. So we're just clarifying that language.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay? And double checking my notes, but I'm pretty sure that was the last one. That's the last suggestion on our part.
So I have a question about, going back, we were talking about the sibling issue. And, we live in a much more complicated world, where people have, have siblings, step siblings, is our COSA policy clear enough on all of that?
Well, we do not address in this policy different family configurations, and in fact that was one of the questions. I think I mentioned that it's one of the scenarios that came up a few times in the comments. If the families were blended families and had shared custody and attending with half siblings, and so these are some of the examples that and the struggles of single parent homes when they have children at multiple places. So there were a lot of categories of concern with respect to sibling, yes, that were identified, through the context of like we said, of the 535 comments that we had, over 400 of them came in the last 3 days. And so we saw a number of examples in that regard.
And we define sibling in regulation JEERA, so the regulation, to be, for the purposes of this regulation, which implements, siblings include stepbrothers and sisters and half-brothers and half-sisters. So we did try to address that with clarity in the regulation.
Should it be in the policy? Should it mirror the regulation?
So, I think that's always a struggle with where it should be. I think that as one argument could be that as families evolve, give flexibility to adjust the regulation, because that's easy. That takes less steps to do if we really need to do it. But if it needs to be in the policy as well, that could be something that would be added and would be consistent with clarity that people are looking to one place.
So I'm going to throw this out to my colleagues. We have this special policy committee meeting today because, we wanted to bring forward the policy January 9th and take action so that it would be in place for just in time for the printing of the COSA book. We've now received 500 comments. We've made some changes, although I don't know that one would categorize them all as substantive, but there are changes. And, certainly, I don't know whether they're, I know staff did their best to synthesize through the 500 comments, but sometimes you need to sort of, as Laura Christina would say, marinate on what you've seen. I believe we need to make the changes in the COSA practice, but I also, I'm recognizing the fact that policy JEE, as it is now, pretty much comes from the point in time where we had a legal challenge all the way up through the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal. I would argue that maybe we need to make sure that we don't have unintended consequences, that we send these changes to the full board and then ask the full board to send it back to the committee, after whatever action the full board has, and then send it back out for public comment.
I agree.
That we take our time to make sure it's all right.
Yep.
I mean, I think that, I think we've done a good job. I don't want to diminish our work, and I had argued, a need for us to get, to have this special meeting, but I really feel that we need to make sure that we've dotted all the i's and crossed all the t's, and that after we have reflection on this, but that, so what I would, what I move is we send this to the full board with the changes, and that the full board direct the policy committee to continue to work on comments and edits, and then the policy committee send it out for tentative action for public comment again, and then it come back to the board for final action.
I'll second that. I think it's important also because we are making, additional changes, and we want to make sure that the public is aware that other changes have been made and give them an opportunity.
Because certainly in between when, November 13th and last Friday, a lot of people weren't paying attention. Right. It's holiday time, and and then somebody would say, this is going to impact my kid. And this policy really, it impacts thousands of, how many COSAs do we do a year?
Over 3,500 a year.
So, it impacts families and real children. So, it needs to be right. So, Judy?
No, I agree.
So, are we all in agreement about that game plan?
Yep.
I know that Ms. Dixon will probably be a little disappointed because she wanted it in place ASAP, but I also want to make sure we have a policy that stands the test of time.
And just one point of clarification, on the last piece we were discussing before you made that motion, Ms. O'Neill, would you like a definition of sibling in the changes that we proposed for the full
I would.
board? Okay, thank you.
Is everybody in agreement about adding in the definition of sibling?
Yes.
Okay, Judy?
I was just going to say, since we had so many comments, I don't think we have a choice but to send it out again so that everybody really understands what the policy is about and pays attention to the changes that we've put forward.
Okay.
Yep. I had a question quickly. On line 119, I don't remember that we added that such approvals in the siblings was for elementary students only. When did that happen?
That is in the comment. I'm sorry, what is your question?
119.
Line 119.
Uh-huh.
I was saying I didn't remember that we had said for elementary school only, and I was curious when that came in.
Well, it would have come in
Because in October, at our October meeting, it wasn't in there, and then I'd have to go back and look at the other one.
So it wasn't in the draft, but I believe it may not have been in the draft that we presented, but in the edits that we took from the committee to final action.
So I think in the policy as it currently exists, as Mr. Neff is whispering, this the limitation applied in particular to siblings attending a magnet or immersion program where the sibling was. And there was discussion when this came, I think, last to the policy committee about all of the various programs at the high school level and implications of having siblings in high schools.
Yeah, I mean,
to
so
middle
if your
schools.
child is admitted to the IB program at Richard Montgomery or the Blair Magnet, I mean, those are special application programs. So I don't necessarily think that a younger sibling.
Well, I mean, what if a child's at a particular school based on like an IEP type of thing or a 504? This to me implies that then you can't. I mean, that would be an additional hardship on a family to me, potentially to have to.
Right. So I think that more is prong one of this at 107, which is about when a sibling seeks to attend the school where it used to be older sibling will be enrolled in the general program. So that's I think the question is, if you have a limitation for elementary schools, do you want it to apply to both prongs? Do you want it to apply to one prong, or do you want it to apply none at all? And there are comments all which way in the comments in terms of this piece. I think that it's a particular space challenge at the middle and high school level where we are where there's barely space for some programs sometimes. To say that a school is not only has to program not only for the program seats but also for the siblings of the program seats.
Well, I agree if it's an application type of thing, but to me, if a family's being placed somewhere based on the fact that their home school can't accommodate them, that shouldn't be an added hardship.
I think the confusion might be number 3 is really meant to be a modifier for number 2 and not number 1.
Okay, but it reads such
Right,
approval,
like
so.
number 1
I
is
assume
if
all.
you're at any school on a COSA or because your child is in a specialized program, then siblings may attend, and it's not elementary only. So I think that's where the confusion. Number 3 on line 119 was meant to be a modifier for number 2 on line 113, and number 1 on line 108 or 107 was meant to stand alone. It wasn't meant to eliminate COSAs for middle and high school students whose siblings might be there on an already approved COSA.
So one of the comments had been about children on IEPs and, siblings being able to attend,
That's what we're talking about
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I mean, so.
I mean, I think if what Mr. Neff is saying is we need to specify that
So
a little
if
better,
it's-
that's only for application programs, that it won't apply. You know what I mean? That it's only for elementary schools based on it being an application process. Does that make sense?
But, I mean, or should it be?
Would it clarify if we eliminated number 3 and folded that sentence into number 2?
100%.
But I think that the second part of that 3 applies to both sets of COSAs, right? The space consideration.
Yes.
So really, it's the first part. So maybe even a way, if we were going to address it now, or this could be something for further consideration, but if you were to address it now, you could address it by striking the words elementary from 19 and 20 and adding the word elementary of a magnet.
Yeah, well, or the whole R for elementary school students only, and put that up in number 2, would be my suggestion.
Just remind me, is the program at Page considered a magnet program?
Real lottery?
No,
I don't, the PAGE program?
it is.
It's an immersion program.
So it's via lottery?
Then magnet shouldn't be in there because I think of Blair when we're talking about magnet. So I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Feel free. Jump in there.
No, it is lottery.
And it It is a magnet.
So, couple options. One option is to have this be something that this committee discuss further if the full board takes the recommendation that this comes back to committee and we don't edit now. Another is to put an edit in now that would take for Ms. Spondrowski's idea that for elementary school only and put it at the top of
I'd like us to do
number
it now.
2 and then delete it from number 3.
Yes.
I vote do it now.
Yep.
And on top of that, as this is, if we vote for this to go to the full board, and if this comes back, how long will it be sent out for public comment? I mean, we've been working on this since 2018.
So our standard process for sending out for public comment is usually at least 8 weeks. And then it depends on the time of the year that we send it out. If it ends up being late in the school year, so if we send this out, if we get this back to the full board in late April or May, then our 8 weeks would land in the summer, so we would extend it to come back to the fall. And I would offer that certainly this policy went out immediately after tentative action on November 13th and was publicized and so forth, but sometimes it takes a little time to as Mrs. Webb say, marinate in the community before they pick up on it. So I would recommend
somehow.
I recommend you stick with that 8-week time frame.
I think that, we need to adopt it before this school year is out, so that then people know this is what will happen during the next COSA season, that it's,
For sure before the school year is out.
by, no later than our June meeting, our June all-day meeting, that we adopt it.
Yeah.
But that gives us time to send it out for public comment and for, us to make some more changes. But I think it has to be adopted no later than
The end
June.
of June, yeah.
No, yep. We should not put it off, but it gives us time to get it all right. Mr. Sivan?
Right. So various options, but another option would be to, if the board, full board, doesn't have further edits that they want this committee to consider, there could be a shortened time frame to even come back to the next policy committee in January and then send it out for public comment, making the comment period start sooner would be another way to go here, or a friendly amendment to what you were proposing.
So that if the full board adopts everything that we've edited today, that be the draft that would go out for public comment?
Or even they would send it back to the policy committee in
January
January,
27th.
and then it go out for public comment shortly after that,
Yep.
so that then the comment period starts ticking, so to speak.
Right.
And then that puts you into your June timeframe that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
I think
good.
whatever,
Because-
with the deadline that it be adopted no later than the June all-day board meeting. Does that time frame work for everyone? So if we can amend that motion, it will, in the memo to the full board, that, we'll send it back out for public comment following the policy committee, but the board will adopt it no later than the June all-day board meeting.
I think that works.
Okay? Or is there anything else that the
I just have one
board-
other quick question, and maybe I'm just not remembering. The conversation about kids who, in the latter, the consortium, who want to move back mid-year, or, maybe want to go to their home school, their base school. Where did we end up with that?
Jeannie?
I think
I thought we were
Ms.
gonna-
Franklin can come off, but I think we ended up with the language in here, and we talked about it, is that if we were to amend the language in here, it would cause significant impact on the broader structure of the consortia, so that's a much bigger issue than this policy to tackle. So I thought we had talked about it. My memory may be misserving me, but that piece would be something to tackle separately from how it is in this, and then to revisit if we need to in the policy. But because it intersects in important ways with the broader structure of the consortium, pulling out a strand on this would have more momentous that are worth further discussion.
Okay. Further discussion when? I don't mean to be whatever, but just so that I can know how it will be discussed and where.
I mean, so I think that's up to the policy committee, but maybe that could be something on the work plan when the policy committee talks about its work plan going forward, to think about that piece of how the consortium piece intersects with all these other policies.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. I mean, we have a growing list of the issues that need to be on our work plan, the policy KEA, student excused absences for civic engagement, which MCCPTA sent us an email or a letter that they've taken action, the issue about gun safety, and taking a look at policies that impact the consortium. I mean, we can put all of those on our to-do list, but this one, we got to get this one done.
And as a note, Fairfax County just changed their policy on the, just as our policy KEA, they also had to change that a lot for one excused absence. So it's
we need
interesting note.
Yep. So I mean, it's on. We need to have all of that on our growing list work plan.
A lot.
Yeah. Right. Including student. I mean the. Being eligibility is also, but I mean, it's currently. Okay, is that it? I mean, since we are really, this meeting was intended only on JE. Ms. Seabrook?
I'm sorry, you made an amended motion. Just want to make sure that we had a vote on that.
Okay, all in agreement that we have this final action scheduled by the June all-day board meeting?
No later.
Yeah.
No later than the June all-day board meeting. Okay. For the good of the order, is there anything else? No.
No.
Okay, then we are adjourned. Happy holidays.